Actually, have you read Reza Aslan's book Zealot yet?
I haven't.
So it's a really great take on Jesus, and it talks about how if you're looking for like a historical account of Jesus, mostly a lot of what you're going to get is people referring to Jesus the Magi, or Jesus who is working some kind of magic all over the place. And so yeah, that's the concept, is he was some kind of
Have you seen like the very earliest depictions of Christ? Like the very first ones, they always depicted him holding a magic wand. Like there are even depictions of him bringing Lazarus out of the tomb by tapping the tomb with a wand.
Wow. Yep. That is so fascinating, man. This stuff is always been of great interest to me. And also somehow for me these days, at least, it's, though I've had experiences with it, working experiences, like it works.
Yes.
I mean, I think you're living proof of this.
Exactly.
And but these days, though, just out of a general realization of the fact that before I can know what I want, I need to know more who I am. I'm doing the first part of what you recommend in your book, and I thought maybe that would be a good starting off point for us, is if you could, if you don't mind, I was wondering if you could, and maybe it's a little long, I don't know, but I just thought this was such a beautiful, simple description of meditation, and I really appreciated the fact that you put this as the very first thing if you're going to start doing magic, and I would love to hear you read it. You got such a nice voice.
Just a little explanation even before we start. The reason that meditation is so important in magic is because mostly what you're doing is directing energy towards something. You know, there's this phrase now, energy flow. Let's see, energy flows where attention goes. It basically means whatever you fasten your attention on is where you're directing, this energy that there's a name for in every culture in the world but ours. Like the Chinese call it qi, the Japanese call it ki, the Hebrews call it ruach, the Indians call it prana. Whatever we fasten our attention on, that's the direction that our energy is going to flow in. So when you're doing magic, you want to keep your mind as single-pointedly focused on whatever you're trying to accomplish as possible. So that's what meditation does. It trains your mind, so it's not constantly scattered and going into all different directions and dispersing the energy that you're trying to build up.
Gotcha.
Good. Okay, let me see.
I'm sorry I wrote all over your beautiful book.
It's perfect. That's what it's for. Where should I start at? Right there?
Yes, sir, if you don't mind. Right there.
Most people aren't aware of just how much they're missing from life. They're distracted by so much stimulation, trapped in loops of internal dialogue, reliving past events, and feeling anxious about what's going to happen tomorrow. And it's so easy to carry on like this until the grave, never actually experiencing the richness of life, of the present moment. Meditation changes all of this. It enables you to pay attention to the present moment and train your mind to do what you want it to do. Meditation enhances your natural ability to be alert and aware. Try biking down Fifth Avenue absent-mindedly. You can't do it. Well, not for very long. Riding a bicycle in that situation requires incredible awareness, and if you're not present for every single second of that ride, you'll end up beneath a city bus before you know it. Additionally, a bicycle will actually drift in whatever direction your attention is focused. Remember the chapter on the power of attention? And if you've ever learned to drive a motorcycle, you know how important this principle is. If you look at the tree you're about to hit instead of the path you need to take to avoid that tree, you'll hit the tree. Reason why they train race car drivers to never look at the wall. The drivers learn to focus their attention on the track and all of the action going on around them. So this is why meditation is important. If you're not aware of precisely where your attention is, it's kind of hard to change that focus. Biking in New York is a demonstration of the primary principles of magic in real time. Meditation empowers you to notice where your attention is going and to steer it accordingly. In magic, we steer it toward what we desire instead of on that which we fear.
That is great.
Thank you.
Wow, man, this is so good. You run into books on magic. I mean, Crowley, wow. But Jesus, he sure comes across as somber sometimes.
Yes, he does.
Lord.
And it takes forever to sort of crack open what he's even saying. You've got to learn so much other stuff before you can even begin to understand what the hell he's actually talking about a lot of times, because so much of it is written in a kind of code.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
And which is great. And I understand that. I think that his reasoning behind that was more than just how funny it is to do that, but also knowing that there's certain layers to this where if people jump ahead too far, you can really blow your face off with this stuff, so to speak, right?
Well, yeah, and the reason for that is because, when you're talking about Eastern traditions, Eastern paths, like Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, things like that, most of these practices are set up to lead you to this state of what they call enlightenment, awakening, what in magic we call crossing the abyss. Eastern traditions are focused on doing that over a period of several lifetimes. Magic is like pouring jet fuel on that process. It aims to accomplish it in one lifetime. So what you're trying to do is cram several lifetimes of spiritual and energetic experiences into one. And that can be a little overwhelming sometimes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And is that Tantra? That reminds me of Tantra. It's Tantra.
Yes, that's Tantra actually plays a huge role in certain aspects or certain traditions of magic, like the OTO, which Crowley was the head of whenever he died.
So have you, I noticed that you have been ordained in Rinzai Zen.
Rinzai Zen Buddhism, yes, it was the tradition that trained the samurai in ancient Japan. When I was in prison, I had a Zen master that would come back and forth from Japan to the prison. And, I sat Zazen meditation for years. And, honestly, I did not get as much out of years of Eastern practices as I did months of ceremonial magic. And I think part of that, it's, the same goal, they're both aiming at the same thing, Western mysticism and Eastern mysticism. But whenever especially someone coming from my background, just poor white trash from Arkansas who has no connection to, any Eastern tradition at all, I had to learn that stuff from scratch. So it was like learning an entire different language. Whereas magic deals with Western iconography, symbolism, things that, we've grown up having shoved into our psyche from the second we came into this world. So I think part of us, some really deep internal part, responds to it a lot quicker than it does the Eastern traditions.
Oh, right. I've heard different versions of what you're saying. That's cool. Right. Like, for example, like let's take Ganesh, maybe Hanuman, for example, the monkey god. It's like, this is a very powerful symbol, but how many of us have had any real experience with monkeys in the wild?
Exactly.
But when they were writing about it, this is because this is a symbol. They were grabbing something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, we didn't have many monkeys in Arkansas.
Too bad. I love them. Yeah. They are annoying, though. They are. When India, it's like, my God, I got chased off a roof by monkeys. They're really nefarious.
I've heard about people having their phones stolen, cameras stolen. They'll run up and snatch stuff right out of your hands and carry it up in the trees with them.
They know if you're a tourist or if you live in India, they could tell the difference right away. And and if you're afraid of them, man, they have a sense of humor.
Magic, ceremonial magic, what we call high magic, originated in ancient Mesopotamia, somewhere around 3,500 BC. So it is uniquely Western. That's not entirely the West. It's more the Middle East, because it originated in a part of the world that would now be, present-day Iraq, in a city called Nippur. What happened, the way we got it in Europe, was whenever the Knights Templar were sent over there to, escort pilgrims through back and forth from the Holy Land to make sure they're not attacked by bandits, things like that. The Knights Templar come in contact with this current. And when I say current, what I'm talking about, how in certain Buddhist traditions, like say Tibetan Buddhism, they talk about, what's the word they use? Empowerments?
Sure.
Or transmission?
Yes.
It's like a current of energy that is passed along from master to student. Ceremonial magic is the exact same thing. The Knights Templar started receiving this current whenever they were over there. That's how it makes its way back to Europe. It makes its way to the United States eventually through the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was the order that Crowley was a member of before he, went off to the OTO. You had MacGregor Mathers, Dion Fortune, the poet W.B. Yeats. All of these people were members of the Golden Dawn. That's how this current makes its way to the U.S. I forgot what the hell we were talking about.
We're talking about the transmission, what's also known as the disciplic succession.
Yes, people think, here's the thing that is so important that I want people to understand about magic whenever I talk about it a lot of times. When we're talking about something being an oral tradition, we sort of live under this misunderstanding that that means it's just a bunch of stories told, handed on. That's not what this means. What an oral tradition is, it means the way this current of energy is passed from one person to another is through the voice. You know, our voice is sound waves. We're creating sound waves which carry information. That's why, you know, in the Bible, I always tell people the Bible is the greatest book of magic ever written, once you know how to read it. You know, the whole thing in the very first chapter of the Bible, they're talking about in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. That's because this is an oral tradition. There are basically two ways that magic is passed on. Does that make sense?
You're blowing my mind.
There's two ways that magic is passed on. One is through like a lodge or order setting, you know, like the Golden Dawn. That's more like a curriculum type thing, like a school. You know, everybody's learning the same thing at the same rate. The other way is like master to student, and that allows for things that are a little more profound, just because you're not learning the same thing as everyone else.
Right.
If it's someone who knows what they're doing